The NSA spy grid has been revealed thanks to Edward Snowden's treasure trove of documents released to the public. As time goes on, we dig through the millions of examples. No borders or boundaries seem to mark the territory of the NSA. People in the US, foreign heads of state, and every single piece of communication is tracked, collected, and put into a database bigger than any in history. Today we'll cover the NSA program, Project X. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I'd like to cover the NSA today, specifically this incredible, in-depth investigation from the Intercept. I will be reading most of it and try to remain focused throughout. You may want to read along with me or perhaps just listen in while working on something else. It's up to you. Let's begin. TITANPOINTE, the NSA spy hub in New York, hidden in plain sight. They called it Project X. It was an unusually audacious, highly sensitive assignment to build a massive skyscraper capable of withstanding an atomic blast in the middle of New York City. It would have no windows, 29 floors, with 3 basement levels and enough food to last 1,500 people 2 weeks in the event of a catastrophe. But the building's primary purpose would not be to protect humans from toxic radiation amid nuclear war. Rather, the fortified skyscraper would safeguard powerful computers, cables, and switchboards. It would house one of the most important telecommunications hubs in the United States, the world's largest center for processing long-distance phone calls, operated by the New York Telephone Company, a subsidiary of AT&T. The building was designed by the architectural firm whose grand vision was to create a communication nerve center like a 20th century fortress with spears and arrows replaced by protons and neutrons, laying quiet siege to an army of machines within. If you'd like to watch this video here, you can click on that. I'm going to move on. Construction began in 1969. By 1974, the skyscraper was completed. It's in the heart of Lower Manhattan, 33 Thomas Street, a vast gray tower in concrete and granite that soars 550 feet into the New York skyline. The brutalist structure still used by AT&T, and according to the New York Department of Finance, owned by the company, is like no other in the vicinity. Unlike the many neighboring residential and office buildings, it is impossible to get a glimpse inside of 33 Thomas Street. True to the designer's original plans, there are no windows and the building is not illuminated. At night, it becomes a giant shadow blending into the darkness, its large square vents emitting a distinct, dull hum that is frequency drowned out by the sound of passing traffic and the wailing sirens. For many New Yorkers, 33 Thomas, known as the Long Lines building, has been a source of mystery for years. Is labeled one of the city's weirdest and most iconic skyscrapers, but little information has ever been published about its purpose. It's not uncommon to keep the public in the dark. 33 Thomas Street is different. An investigation by the Intercept indicates that the skyscraper is more than a nerve center for long-distance phone calls. Check this out. It also appears to be one of the most important national security agency surveillance sites on U.S. soil, a covert monitoring hub that is used to tap into phone calls, faxes, and internet data. Documents obtained by the Intercept from the NSA whistleblower, the legend himself, Edward Snowden, do not explicitly name 33 Thomas Street as a surveillance facility. However, taken together with architectural plans, public records, and interviews with former AT&T employees conducted for this article, they provide compelling evidence that 33 Thomas Street has served as the NSA surveillance site, codename TITANPOINTE. Inside 33 Thomas Street, there is a major international gateway switch, according to the former AT&T engineer, which routes phone calls between the United States and countries across the world. A series of top secret NSA memos suggest that the agency has tapped into these phone calls from a secure facility within the AT&T building. The Manhattan Skyscraper appears to be a core location used for a controversial NSA surveillance program that has targeted the communications of the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and at least 38 countries, including close allies such as Germany, Japan, and France. It has long been known that AT&T has cooperated with the NSA on surveillance, but few details have emerged about the role of specific facilities in carrying out the top secret programs. The Snowden documents provide new information about how the NSA equipment has been integrated as part of AT&T's network in New York City, revealing the unprecedented detail of the methods and technology the agency uses to vacuum up communications from the company's systems. This is yet more proof that our communication service providers have become, whether willingly or unwillingly, the arm of the surveillance state. That's huge. That's from the co-director of this institution here. The NSA is presumably operating under authorities that enable it to target foreigners, but the fact that it is so deeply embedded in our domestic communications infrastructure should tip people off that the effects of this kind of surveillance cannot be neatly limited to non-Americans. TITANPOINTE features dozens of times in the NSA documents, often in classified reports about surveillance operations. The agency uses code names to conceal information it deems especially sensitive. For instance, the names of the companies it cooperates with or specific locations electronic spying is carried out. Such details are usually considered, quote, exceptionally controlled information, a category beyond top secret and thus outside the scope of the documents that Snowden was able to obtain. Remember, again, that's exceptionally controlled information. Secret NSA travel guides dated 2011-2013, however, revealed information about TITANPOINTE that helps establish its connection to 33 Thomas, essentially going on, talking about the partner, quote, Lithium, and that's where they believe is codename for AT&T. 33 Thomas Street building is located almost next door to the FBI. The 2011 travel guide instructs employees traveling to TITANPOINTE to head to the FBI's field office. It adds trips that should be coordinated with AT&T, references Lithium, and the FBI, including the FBI Site Watch officer, and that's the buzzer at the front door. You cannot see inside the building, of course. When traveling to TITANPOINTE, NSA employees are told to hire a cover vehicle through the FBI, especially if they are transporting equipment to the site in order to keep their true identities secret while visiting. Agency employees are instructed not to wear any clothing displaying NSA badges or insignia. Upon arrival, the 2011 guide says the agency employee should ring the buzzer, sign in, and wait for a person to come and meet them. The Intercept visited 33 Thomas and found the buzzer outside the building. And that's the building's lobby, which is manned by a guard 24 hours a day. There's parking bays in the front with a skyscraper designated AWM, a traffic code for federal agencies. A 1994 New York Times article reported 33 Thomas was part of the AT&T's giant worldwide intelligence network, which is responsible for directing the average of 175 million phone calls a day. Of course, all being spied on. Right here, this individual told the Intercept that inside the building there was at least 3 4ESS switches that's routing calls. It goes on, TITANPOINTE contained these switches that's mentioned in the NSA documents as well, further corresponding that information. The NSA's documents also reveal that one of TITANPOINTE's functions is to conduct surveillance as part of a program called Skid Row, which focuses on intercepting satellite communications. This is a particularly striking detail because the roof of 33 Thomas, so there are a number of satellite dishes. It moves on. That all, again, links AT&T to this TITANPOINTE here. The man behind the design was one of the most prominent architects between the 1960s and the 1980s. They talk a lot about the structure itself. And one of those is he helped construct a new embassy complex, this individual, in Washington for the Soviet Union, in which the Soviets claimed they found eavesdropping equipment embedded in the walls. Yet again, spying every which way they can. Okay, so they get more into this about his connections in with AT&T, how their relatives and things were all interconnected there. I'm going to move on. This 33 Thomas Street labeled Project X, it was alternatively referred to as the Broadway building. They wanted to create a skyscraper to be inhabited by machines and say it was designed to house long line telephone equipment to protect it and its operating personnel in the event of an atomic attack. At the time the building was commissioned and built amid the Cold War, there were genuine fears about the U.S. being a prospect of the assault. There's some diagrams there if you're interested. It's not clear how many people work there, but it basically said they would have enough food, water, and recreation for 1,500 people. It would store 250,000 gallons of fuel to power generators and be able to become a self-contained city in the event of an emergency power failure. The blueprints show it was to include 3 subterranean levels, including a cable vault where telecommunications cables likely entered and exited. After it was built, the unusual style attracted a lot of attention. Its dark, somewhat dystopian appearance contrasted dramatically with other buildings, yet it proved popular, particularly among architectural buffs. In 1982, the New York Times wrote about it. One of the neighborhood few pieces of good modern architecture blends into the surroundings more gracefully than it does a skyscraper in the areas. So it's just simply talking about the architecture at this point. I don't want to cover that too much. Other telephone company buildings look from an era designed solely for equipment. All look like horrible boxes. This is something to see. 1975. This basically the NSA embroiled in one of the biggest scandals in the U.S. intelligence community's history following revelations about the domestic surveillance operations targeting anti-Vietnam War activists. The Congressional Select Committee began investigating the alleged abuses. So here we are in 1975, the NSA getting in trouble for the same thing they are getting in trouble for today. But of course, it's just a slap on the wrist. No need to worry. Nothing's going to happen. Do you see what's happening here? They build these buildings, they interconnect with the different agencies, and they spy on domestic citizens, they spy on foreign people as well. There's more in here about the surveillance that took place, and including a host of eminent Americans such as civil rights leaders Martin Luther King, Whitney Young, boxer Muhammad Ali, Washington Post columnist, New York Times journalist. The Church Committee recommended that new and tighter controls be placed on intelligence gathering. In 1978, Congress approved the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, requiring the executive branch to request warrants for spying operations from a newly formed court. That doesn't happen. That never happens. There's more diagrams there showing you exactly what this is all about. Through the tumultuous time for American spies, the NSA established a new surveillance program under the code name Blarney, which was first exposed in a Snowden leaked slide published in 2013. According to the previously unpublished document provided to the Intercept by Snowden, Blarney was established in the early 1970s. In mid-2013, remained one of the agency's most significant initiatives. Blarney leverages, quote, commercial partnership, and this, by the way, this is it. This is what I wanted to get to. Commercial partnerships in order to gain access and exploit foreign intelligence obtained from global networks. It carries out full take surveillance, a term that refers to the bulk collection of both content and metadata under 6 different categories: counter-proliferation, counter-terrorism, diplomatic, economic, military, and political. June 2010, the NSA obtained at least 40 court orders for spying under Blarney, allowing the agency to monitor communications related to multiple countries, companies, and international organizations. Among the approved targets were the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Bank of Japan, the European Union, the United Nations, and 38 different countries, including U.S. allies, Italy, Japan, France, Brazil, Germany, Greece, Mexico, Cyprus, The program was the NSA's leading source of data collection under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. They did so, according to their laws, totally legally. TITANPOINTE has played a role in Blarney's operations. NSA documents dated 2013-2012. The TITANPOINTE surveillance facility was one of the core sites describing as Blarney's site in NYC. Equipment hosted at TITANPOINTE would be used to monitor international long-distance phone calls, faxes, and voice calls routed over the internet, known as voice over IP, video conferencing, and other internet traffic. Everything that's moving is getting captured. If it's moving, if it's still even, it's getting captured. And one of those locations is this TITANPOINTE. In one case may involve 33 Thomas NSA engineers with the Blarney program worked to eavesdrop on data from a connection serving the United Nations mission in New York. The spying resulted in the collection against the email addresses of the UN general leading the monitoring the mission in Syria. Very important, very crucial, and it's something that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. Put all the laws you want in place, it's just getting worse. And there's more detail about exactly how it's all working. I just want to forward ahead. Don't want to get this too long here. Much of the surveillance carried out on TITANPOINTE seems to involve monitoring calls and other communications as they're being sent across AT&T's international phone and calls cables. The Skid Row spying program focuses on covertly vacuuming up the internet data, known as digital network intelligence, as it passes between foreign satellites. The harvested data is then made accessible through Skyscraper. You may have heard that before. A Google-like mass surveillance system that the NSA's employees use to search through huge quantities of information about people's emails, chats, Skype calls, passwords, and internet browsing histories. Allow any government agency to connect directly to or otherwise control our network to obtain customers' information. Rather, we simply respond to government requests for information pursuant to court orders or other mandatory process, and in rare cases on a legal and voluntary basis when a person's life is in danger, yeah, right? And the time is of the essence, like a kidnapping situation. I'm sure, just like the Patriot Act, they only use it when necessary. The NSA representatives do not have access to any secure room or space within our own portion of 33 Thomas Street building. When pressed, whether any room within 33 Thomas contains equipment used for the purpose of the NSA surveillance, the AT&T spokesperson pointed to a 1983 deed of declaration filed by the New York City, indicating that Verizon's predecessor company maintained the ownership of 3 floors, basement floor in the building, the New York City Department of Finance. It goes on more detail. Basically, they are interconnected, in fact, and they can prove that. The NSA's documents do not state they connect directly to or otherwise control the AT&T networks, but they do make it clear that the agency has placed its own equipment inside TITANPOINTE to tap into the phone calls and internet data. It may be the case that the secure room, whether the equipment is installed or overseen by AT&T's own engineers and technicians who have a security clearance. One NSA document dated 2013 states there's a relationship of corporate sites, often controlled by the partner who filters the communication before sending it to the NSA, saying that it's necessarily not alone. And they go on to talk about how intimately connected the AT&T is with the NSA. And it's not just them, but that's what the articles are really getting to. And the ties in between these two, they are just go over those over and over again. I just want to move on to this here. The New York Times and ProPublica reported last year AT&T has allowed the NSA to access billions of emails exhibiting what the agency called extreme willingness to help. And I'll stop that for today. I just wanted to cover this. I feel it is very important, and this really goes into the depth and detail of how these NSA programs work. They utilize the already existent corporations, and because corporations and government are simply one, they use those facilities, use those institutions and corporations to collect data to be used against us. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this type of video, you want to hear more of this type of video, let me know. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, you'll definitely want to check out my site where I have a free e-course, I've got free ebooks, and I've got all sorts of different information. I got my YouTube videos, of course, linked on there. You can see some information about my consultations, about the Money GPS, the book itself. So that's themoneygps.com.